The electronic chime of the Seoul subway system rang out, ding-dong, dang-dong, signaling that the train was arriving. To Amara, it didn't sound like a bell. It sounded like the countdown to the end of her life. She stood on the platform of Gangnam Station, her heart pounding against her ribs so hard she could hear it in her ears. The train screeched to a halt, a silver bullet of speed and opportunity. The glass safety doors slid open with a hiss. This was it. The train that would take her to the most important job interview of her life at Park Global. If she stepped on this train, she would be on time. She would become a top fashion designer. She would save her sick mother in Nigeria. But Amara couldn't move her feet. Because right in front of her, lying on the dirty, cold tiles of the station floor, was an old man. He was dressed in ragged, gray clothes that smelled like old mothballs. He was clutching his chest, his face twisted in pain, gasping for air like a fish out of water. His wooden cane had slid across the floor, tripping a businessman in a suit who just kicked it away and kept running. Hundreds of people were rushing past him. They stepped over his legs. They looked at their phones. They ignored him completely. To them, he was just an obstacle. To Amara, he was a human being dying at her feet. The train doors began to beep. Beep, beep, beep. Amara looked at the warm, bright lights of the train car. Then she looked down at the terrified eyes of the old man. She had 1 second to decide, become a billionaire fashion designer, or save a stranger who nobody cared about. Stop. Before we see what choice Amara makes, I need to know something very important. Where are you watching this story from? Are you in Lagos? Accra? London? New York? Or maybe Seoul? This is the most important aspect of this story because kindness speaks every language. Drop your city in the comments below right now. Now, let's rewind the clock 4 hours to see why this interview meant everything to Amara. 4 hours earlier, the alarm on Amara's phone screamed at 5 a.m. Amara woke up instantly in the dark. She didn't live in a high-rise apartment with a view of the Han River. She lived in a banjiha, a semi-basement apartment that was halfway underground. When she opened her eyes, the first thing she smelled was the damp, earthy scent of mold. It was a smell that clung to her clothes and her hair, a constant reminder that she was struggling. She reached up and turned off the alarm, careful not to knock over the stack of fashion sketches piled high on her small bedside table. Amara sat up and shivered. The floor was cold. She walked to the tiny window, which was street level, and looked out. All she could see were the wheels of cars parked outside and the feet of people walking by. She pressed her hand against the glass and whispered a prayer. God, please. Let today be the day. Let me get this job. She had moved from Lagos to Seoul 3 years ago with a scholarship and a dream. She was brilliant. Her designs mixed the bold, vibrant patterns of Ankara fabric with the sleek, modern cuts of Korean street fashion. Everyone said she was a genius. But genius didn't pay the bills. Since graduating, she had been rejected 50 times. They told her she was too loud. They told her she didn't fit the Korean aesthetic. They told her to go home. But she couldn't go home. Not yet. Amara walked to her small kitchenette and boiled water for tea. As the water bubbled, her phone rang. It was a video call from Nigeria. Amara took a deep breath, put on a fake, happy smile, and answered. The face of her mother, Mama Ngozi, appeared on the screen. Mama looked tired. Her skin was pale, and she was lying in a hospital bed with peeling blue paint on the walls. Amara, my daughter. Mama's voice was weak and scratchy.
How are you?
Did you eat? I'm fine, Mama. Amara lied, her stomach growling because she was skipping breakfast to save money for the train. I ate a big breakfast. Listen, pray for me. Today is the interview with Park Global. Mama's eyes lit up. Park Global? The big company. Yes, Mama. If I get this job, I can fly you here. The doctors here are the best in the world. They can fix your heart. Mama smiled, but it was a sad smile.
Don't worry about me.
Just do your best. Remember who you are. You are Amara. You are strong. The call cut off due to bad internet connection. Amara stared at the black screen, tears stinging her eyes. Her mother was running out of time. The doctors in Lagos said she needed a surgery that cost thousands of dollars. Amara had $17 in her bank account. This interview wasn't just about a career. It was a life-or-death mission. Amara wiped her face. She couldn't cry. Crying would ruin her makeup, and she couldn't afford good waterproof mascara. She turned to her closet. Hanging there, covered in plastic, was her armor. It was a cream-colored pantsuit she had designed and sewn herself. It was perfect. She took it out like it was made of glass. She set up her ironing board and began to press it. The steam hissed as she smoothed out every wrinkle. She checked every button. She brushed every speck of lint. She had to look perfect. She had to look like she belonged in a boardroom, not a basement. She dressed carefully. She tied her braids back into a neat, professional bun. She put on her only pair of good heels, black pumps that she had polished until they shined like mirrors. She looked in the cracked bathroom mirror. She didn't see a poor Nigerian girl. She saw a powerful woman. She saw a director. "I am worthy," she whispered to her reflection. "I am talented. I am going to win." She grabbed her portfolio, a heavy black folder filled with her best designs, and walked out the door. She climbed the steep stairs out of the basement and stepped into the bright, busy morning of Seoul. The city was already awake. Cars were honking, people were rushing, and the energy was electric. Amara checked her watch. 7:30 a.m. Her interview was at 9 a.m. The train ride took 45 minutes. She had plenty of time. She was going to be early. She walked to the subway station, her heels clicking a confident rhythm on the pavement. She swiped her transport card at the gate.
Beep.
Balance, $1.50. That was it. That was the last of her money. She had just enough to get there. If she didn't get the job, she would have to walk home. Amara stood on the escalator, descending deep underground. The subway station was a sea of people. Everyone was wearing gray or black suits. Everyone was looking at their smartphones. No one was talking. It was the morning rush hour, a time when Seoul became a machine. Amara squeezed her way through the crowd. She felt eyes on her. She was used to it. Being a tall black woman in Korea meant she always stood out. Sometimes people stared with curiosity, sometimes with judgment. Today, she ignored them all. She kept her eyes on the digital clock hanging from the ceiling. 7:55 a.m.
Perfect.
The train was coming in 2 minutes. She moved to the platform, finding a spot near the screen doors. She clutched her portfolio tight to her chest. She practiced her introduction in her head. "Annyeonghaseyo. My name is Amara. I believe fashion is a language that speaks." That was when she heard the sound. It was a soft thud, followed by the clattering of wood against tile. Amara turned her head. About 10 feet away, an old man had just collapsed. He hadn't fallen dramatically. He had just crumpled, like a piece of paper losing its strength. He was on his knees, one hand clutching his chest, the other reaching out for his cane, which had slid away. He was dressed poorly. His pants were too short, revealing mismatched socks. His jacket was old and faded, with patches on the elbows. He wore a flat cap that was pulled low over his eyes. He looked like a grandfather who had gotten lost on his way to the market. "Help!" The old man wheezed. His voice was barely a whisper. He spoke in a thick, countryside dialect that was hard to understand. "Sugar, please." Amara looked around. The station was packed. There were at least 50 people standing nearby. A young man in a university jacket was standing right next to the old man. He looked down, saw the old man gripping his pant leg, and shook him off with a look of annoyance. He put his headphones on and turned away. A woman in a business suit stepped carefully over the old man's legs so she wouldn't scuff her shoes. She checked her watch and tapped her foot impatiently for the train. Amara's eyes went wide with shock. In Nigeria, this would never happen. If an elder fell, 10 people would rush to pick him up. You respected your elders. You protected them. But here, in the rush of the big city, everyone was in their own bubble. Everyone was too busy. The old man groaned again. He rolled onto his side, curling into a ball. He was shaking. His skin was turning a pale gray color. Amara took a step toward him. Then she stopped. No. A voice in her head screamed. Amara, don't. You have an interview. You have 15 minutes to get on that train. If you stop now, you will be late. Director Choi hates late people. You will lose the job. You will lose the money. Mama will die. She gripped her portfolio tighter. Her knuckles turned white. She turned her head back to the train tracks. She could hear the rumble of the approaching train. The wind from the tunnel blew past her face. Just get on the train, she told herself. Someone else will help him. There are security guards. There are cameras. It is not your problem. But then she looked back. She couldn't help it. Her grandmother had raised her better than that. She looked at the old man's face. He looked so scared. He looked so lonely. He locked eyes with her. His eyes were milky and faded, but they were pleading. He reached a trembling hand toward her. Agassi, he whispered, using the word for young lady. Help me. The station announcement chime rang out. Ding dong dang dong. The train for Gangnam is approaching, the robotic voice announced. The train roared into the station. The brakes screeched. The heavy glass doors slid open with a whoosh. A wave of people poured out, and a wave of people surged forward to get in. The empty plastic bottle of orange juice clattered onto the subway floor, rolling away until it hit the wall. The old man wiped his mouth with a trembling hand. The color was returning to his face. He wasn't pale and gray anymore. He looked human again. He took a deep, rattling breath and looked up at the woman who was holding him. Amara was sitting in the dust, her cream-colored suit stained with dirt at the knees. Her feet were bare and cold on the tiles because her shoes were still kicked off near the vending machine. Her hair, which had been so perfectly neat, was now loose and frizzy where strands had escaped her bun during the panic. She didn't look like a high-powered fashion director anymore. She looked like a mess. But to the old man, she looked like an angel. He gripped her hand. His skin was rough, like old paper, but his grip was surprisingly strong. He looked at the digital clock on the wall, then he looked at Amara's terrified face. He saw the way she kept glancing at the tunnel where the train had disappeared. He saw the black portfolio lying in the dirt, the papers slightly bent. He was old, but he wasn't stupid. He knew exactly what had just happened. He knew the look of someone whose dreams had just been crushed. Young lady, the old man rasped, his voice still weak. You missed your train. Amara looked down at him. She wanted to scream. She wanted to cry. She wanted to tell him that she hadn't just missed a train. She had missed her life. She had missed the chance to save her mother. She had missed the only door that was open to her in this city. But when she looked into his cloudy, confused eyes, the anger melted away. It wasn't his fault. He was just a sick old man. If she had left him, he might have died. And Amara knew that no job, no matter how much it paid, was worth a human soul. She forced a smile. It was a sad, broken smile, but it was kind. She reached over and picked up her shoes, slipping her cold feet back into them. It's okay, Grandpa, she whispered, her voice shaking just a little. There will be another train. There is always another train. The old man shook his head slowly.
No.
You were running. You were dressed up. It was important. He squeezed her hand tighter. Why did you stop? Hundreds of people walked past me. They stepped over me like I was garbage. Why did you stop? Amara paused. She thought about her mother in the hospital bed in Lagos. She thought about her grandmother's village. Because, Amara said softly, helping the old man sit up straighter. My mother taught me that a job can be replaced. Money can be replaced. But a life cannot be replaced. If I left you here, I wouldn't be able to look at myself in the mirror. The old man stared at her. He didn't say anything for a long time. He seemed to be studying her face, memorizing her eyes, her nose, the kindness in her expression. He looked at the name tag she had pinned to her lapel for the interview. Amara Adebayo. He nodded a small, secret movement. Thank you, Amara, he whispered. I will not forget this. Amara checked her watch again. 9:15 a.m. Panic exploded in her chest like a bomb. She was 15 minutes late. In Korea, being on time meant being 15 minutes early. Being late was a sin. Being 15 minutes late was a disaster. She scrambled to her feet, dusting off her knees frantically. She pulled her phone out of her purse. Her hands were shaking so bad, she almost dropped it. She dialed the number for Park Global's HR department. Ring, ring, ring. Hello, Park Global. Reception. A cool, sharp voice answered. Hello. Amara gasped, breathless. Please, this is Amara Adebayo. I have an interview with Director Choi at 9 a.m. I am so sorry. There was a medical emergency at the subway station. I helped a man who collapsed. I am on my way now. Please, tell Director Choi I will be there in 20 minutes. There was a silence on the other end of the line. It was a cold, judgmental silence. Miss Adebayo, the receptionist said, her voice dripping with ice. Director Choi does not tolerate lateness. He says that if you cannot manage your time, you cannot manage a fashion line. The schedule is full. Do not bother coming.
Click.
The line went dead. Amara stood there, holding the phone to her ear, the dial tone buzzing like a fly. She felt like she had been punched in the stomach. No, she whispered. No, please. She redialed. It went straight to voicemail. She had been blocked. She dropped her hand to her side. It was over.
3 years of studying.
Late nights, sewing until her fingers bled. The hope in her mother's eyes.
Gone.
All because she stopped to buy a bottle of orange juice. She looked down at the old man. He was struggling to stand up, leaning heavily on the wall. He looked wobbly. Amara wiped a tear from her cheek. She couldn't just leave him here. What if he fell again? She took a deep breath. She had already lost the job. She might as well finish the good deed. Come on, Grandpa, she said, putting her arm around his waist to support him. You shouldn't be alone. Do you have family to call? The old man looked down at his ragged shoes. I don't know, he mumbled. My memory, it comes and goes. Okay, Amara said patiently. Let's get you to the station office. The police officer there will help you find your way home. I will walk you there. She walked him slowly to the safety booth at the end of the platform. She explained the situation to the station guard, made sure the old man was sitting on a bench, and bought him a bottle of water with her very last coins. Now her bank account was truly zero. You are a good girl, the old man said as she turned to leave. He looked at her ruined suit. You go now. Go to your building. Fight for it. Amara looked at him.
Fight.
For it? The receptionist said not to come. But the old man's eyes were fierce. You saved a life, the old man said firmly. Now go save yours. Run. Something in his voice sparked a fire in Amara's chest. He was right. She hadn't come all the way from Nigeria to give up because of a phone call. She would go there. She would burst into that office. She would show them her designs. She would make them listen. Okay, Amara nodded. I will run. She grabbed her portfolio. She kicked off her heels again, holding them in her hand so she could run faster. She sprinted back to the platform just as another train arrived. She threw herself through the doors just before they closed. The ride took 40 minutes. It felt like 40 years. Amara spent the time trying to fix her appearance. She used spit to clean the dirt off her cheek. She smoothed her hair. She tried to wipe the stain on her knee, but it just smeared. She looked at her reflection in the dark window of the tunnel. She looked like a madwoman. But she didn't care. Next stop, Gangnam. Amara burst out of the station and onto the street. The Park Global building towered above her, a massive needle of glass and steel that touched the sky.
It was intimidating.
It was beautiful. It was the fortress she had to breach. She ran. She ran past the coffee shops, past the businessmen walking calmly, past the luxury cars. Her lungs were burning. Her legs felt like jelly. She checked her watch. 10:15 a.m. She was over an hour late. She reached the revolving doors of the lobby. She stopped for 1 second to put her shoes back on. She took a deep breath, straightened her jacket, and pushed inside. The lobby was silent and huge. It smelled of expensive lilies and money. The floor was polished marble that reflected her disheveled figure like a mirror. Security guards in dark suits stood by the elevators. Behind a massive white desk sat the receptionist, the one with the icy voice. Amara walked up to the desk. Her heart was hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. "Excuse me," Amara panted, trying to sound professional. "I am Amara Adebayo. I know I am late, but I am here. I need to see Director Choi." The receptionist looked up. She was a beautiful woman with perfect makeup and a sneer on her lips. She recognized Amara's voice. She looked at Amara's dirty pantsuit. She looked at her messy hair. She laughed, a short, cruel sound. "You must be joking," the receptionist said. "I told you on the phone. The interview is over. Director Choi is a busy man. He is currently in a meeting with the board. Please leave." "No," Amara said, slamming her hand on the desk. "I traveled thousands of miles for this. I had a medical emergency. I saved a man's life. Just call him. Just tell him I am here with my portfolio."
Please.
"Just 5 minutes." "Security," the receptionist said calmly into her headset. "We have a disturbance in the lobby." 2 large guards started walking toward Amara. "Wait," a voice shouted from the mezzanine balcony above the lobby. Amara looked up. A man was walking down the grand staircase. He was wearing a sharp gray suit and rimless glasses. He looked important. He looked angry. It was Director Choi. "What is this noise?" Director Choi demanded as he reached the bottom of the stairs. "I can hear shouting from the second floor. Is this how we maintain a professional environment?" "Director Choi," Amara cried out, stepping around the guards. "Sir, I am the candidate." "Amara, please let me explain." Director Choi stopped. He looked at Amara. His eyes scanned her from head to toe. He saw the stain on her knee. He saw the sweat on her forehead. He curled his lip in disgust. "You," Director Choi scoffed. "You are the genius designer from Nigeria? You look like a beggar." "I had an accident on the way," Amara pleaded, holding up her portfolio. "But my designs, sir, they are perfect."
Just look at them.
"I promise you, I am the best person for this job." "You're late," Choi said coldly. "In this company, time is money. If you cannot respect my time, you do not respect me. And looking like that in my lobby, you are an embarrassment." "I stopped to help a sick old man," Amara shouted, tears stinging her eyes. "He was dying on the subway." Director Choi laughed. It was a loud, mocking sound that echoed through the lobby. Everyone stopped to watch. "A likely story," Choi sneered. "Everyone has an excuse. My dog ate my homework. I helped a sick old man. Do you think I am stupid? You overslept. You are lazy. And you are a liar." He stepped closer to her, invading her personal space. "We don't hire liars at Park Global," he hissed. "And we certainly don't hire people who look like trash.
Get out of my building.
And don't ever come back." Amara stood frozen. She had expected him to be strict. She hadn't expected him to be cruel. She gripped her portfolio, her knuckles turning white. "You are making a mistake," she whispered. "The only mistake was inviting you." Choi spat. He turned to the guards. "Throw her out." The guards grabbed Amara by the arms. They weren't gentle. They dragged her backward across the polished floor.
No. Please.
"Just look at my drawings," Amara screamed, fighting them. But she was no match for their strength. They shoved her through the revolving doors. She stumbled and fell onto the hard concrete sidewalk outside. Her portfolio slid across the pavement, spilling her sketches into the dirt. Amara scrambled to pick them up, her beautiful drawings of colorful African-Korean fusion dresses now stained with grit. She sat on the curb, clutching her ruined dreams to her chest. She looked up at the massive glass building that had rejected her. She thought of her mother. She buried her face in her knees and finally, she let the tears come.
She sobbed.
She had done the right thing. She had been kind. And this was her reward. Humiliation.
Poverty.
Failure. But as she cried, she didn't notice the sudden silence that fell over the street. She didn't notice that the traffic had stopped. She didn't see the convoy of 3 sleek, black Rolls Royces pulling up to the curb right in front of her. The tears were hot and blurry in Amara's eyes as she sat on the cold, concrete curb, clutching her dirty portfolio to her chest. She felt like the smallest person in the grand city of Seoul. The towering glass building behind her, Park Global, cast a long shadow over her, blocking out the sun. She had failed. She had no job, no money to fix her mother's heart, and now she had no dignity left. She was just a girl sitting in the dirt while the busy world rushed past her. She wiped her nose with her sleeve, trying to stop sobbing, but the pain in her chest was too heavy. She didn't notice that the street, usually filled with honking taxis and noisy buses, had gone strangely quiet. She didn't notice that the pedestrians had stopped walking and were staring with their mouths open. A deep, low hum vibrated through the pavement, shaking the pebbles near Amara's feet. She looked up through her tear-filled lashes. A car had pulled up right in front of her. But it wasn't just a car. It was a beast. It was a black Rolls Royce Phantom, polished so perfectly it looked like liquid ink. And behind it was another one. And another. A convoy of 3 massive luxury vehicles had taken over the street. The flags of the Park Global Corporation fluttered on the hood of the lead car. The security guards who had just thrown Amara out were now standing at rigid attention, their backs straight as arrows, sweat beading on their foreheads. Amara sniffled and scooted back on the curb, trying to make herself invisible. She thought she was in the way. She thought some VIP was arriving and she would get yelled at again for being trash on the sidewalk. The driver of the lead car jumped out. He was wearing white gloves. He ran around to the back door and opened it with a smooth, practiced motion. Amara watched, holding her breath. First, a young man stepped out. He was tall, with broad shoulders and hair styled to perfection. He wore a navy blue suit that fit him like a second skin. He was devastatingly handsome, with sharp jawlines and eyes that looked intelligent and kind. He looked like a prince from a Korean drama. He turned back to the open door and extended his hand gently. "Careful, grandfather," the young man said, his voice deep and respectful. An ornate wooden cane with a golden handle emerged from the car, tapping onto the pavement with a solid clack. Then, an elderly man stepped out. Amara gasped softly.
It couldn't be.
The old man was about the same height as the grandpa she had saved in the subway. He had the same white hair. But everything else was different. The grandpa in the subway wore rags and smelled like mothballs. This man wore a suit made of gray silk that shimmered in the light. He wore a watch that cost more than Amara's entire village. He stood tall, radiating an aura of immense power and authority that made the air feel heavy. Before Amara could process what she was seeing, the glass doors of the Park Global building burst open. Director Choi came running out. He wasn't walking, he was sprinting. He looked terrified. He almost tripped over his own expensive shoes as he rushed down the stairs, followed by the receptionist and 3 other executives. They lined up on the sidewalk like nervous school children. Director Choi bowed so low his head almost hit his belt buckle. "Chairman Kim," Director Choi shouted, his voice shaking. "Welcome back, sir. We were so worried. You disappeared this morning without your security detail. We were about to call the police." The old man, Chairman Kim, didn't even look at Director Choi. He ignored the bowing executives. He ignored the handsome young man trying to guide him toward the entrance. His eyes were locked on something else. He was looking down at the curb. He was looking at the crying woman in the dirty pantsuit. Amara froze. The chairman was staring right at her. She felt panic rise in her throat. "Oh no," she thought. "He is going to yell at me too. He is going to tell me to get off his property." She lowered her head, hiding her face, preparing for the insult.
Tap, tap.
She felt a light touch on her shoulder. It was the golden cane. "Young lady," a familiar, raspy voice said. "You are still sitting on the floor?" Amara's head snapped up. She looked into the chairman's eyes. They weren't the cold, hard eyes of a billionaire. They were the milky, kind eyes of the man she had held in her arms at the subway station. The man she had bought orange juice for. "Grandpa," Amara whispered, the words slipping out before she could stop it. The handsome young man next to the chairman looked shocked. "Grandpa," he repeated, looking at Amara. "You know this woman, sir?" The chairman smiled. It was a small, mischievous smile. "Know her? Ji-hoon, this is the angel I told you about. The one who missed her train." Director Choi, who was still bowing, froze. He slowly lifted his head. His face went pale white, like he had seen a ghost. He looked at the chairman, then at Amara, sitting in the dirt with her ruined sketches. His eyes darted back and forth as his brain tried to connect the dots. The beggar woman and the chairman? "Chairman," Director Choi stammered, stepping forward nervously. You must be mistaken. This woman is just a reject. She came late for an interview. She was making a scene in the lobby. I had security remove her." The chairman's smile vanished instantly. The air temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. He turned his head slowly to look at Director Choi. The kindness was gone from his eyes, replaced by the terrifying steel of a man who had built an empire from nothing. "Remove her?" the chairman repeated softly. "Yes, sir," Choi said, trying to sound confident but failing. "She was over an hour late." She looked disheveled. She claimed she was helping some sick old man in the subway. Obviously a lie to cover her laziness. "We at Park Global have standards, sir." The chairman didn't shout. He didn't scream. He simply took a step closer to Choi. "A lie?" the chairman asked. He reached into the pocket of his silk suit and pulled out something. It wasn't a gold bar or a diamond. It was a cheap, empty plastic orange juice bottle. He held it up for everyone to see. "This bottle cost $1.50, the chairman said, his voice ringing out across the silent street. "It was the last money she had. She bought this for me while I was lying on the floor, dying of hypoglycemia, while your employees stepped over me to get to work." Director Choi's jaw dropped. He looked at the empty bottle. He looked at Amara. He started to sweat profusely. "Sir,
I
didn't know." "You didn't know?" the chairman interrupted, his voice rising. "She told you. She stood in your lobby and told you she saved a life. And you laughed at her. You called her a liar. You threw her on the street." Amara slowly stood up. Her legs were shaky. The handsome young man, Ji-hoon, reached out and gently took her arm to steady her. She looked at him, startled by his touch. He smiled at her, a look of pure admiration in his eyes. "Are you okay?" Ji-hoon asked softly. "I am sorry for how you were treated." I'm fine," Amara stuttered. She looked at the chairman. Chairman, you are okay? You found your family?" "I found them." The chairman patted Ji-hoon's hand. "My grandson, CEO Park Ji-hoon, came to pick me up from the police station where you left me." "But Amara, I never forgot what you said." The chairman turned back to Director Choi, who was now trembling so hard his knees were knocking together. The other executives were backing away from him, trying to distance themselves from the disaster. "Director Choi," the chairman said, leaning on his cane. "You said you have standards at Park Global. You said time is money." "Yes, Chairman," Choi squeaked. "Well, I have a new standard," the chairman said coldly. "Character. You can teach a person how to design a dress. You can teach them how to use a computer. But you cannot teach them how to care about a human being." The chairman gestured to Amara. "This woman sacrificed her dream to save a stranger. She has more honor in her dirt-stained knees than you have in your entire expensive suit." Director Choi fell to his knees on the sidewalk. "Chairman,
please.
I have worked here for 20 years. I made a mistake. I will apologize. Miss Adebayo, I am sorry. Please." He grabbed the hem of Amara's jacket. Amara stepped back, uncomfortable. "Get up," the chairman commanded. "You are embarrassing yourself." He looked at the security guards. "Escort Mr. Choi to his office to pack his things. He is no longer employed at Park Global. In fact, make sure he is escorted out of the building, exactly the way he escorted Miss Amara."
"No.
You can't do this." Choi screamed as the guards, the same ones who had dragged Amara out, grabbed him by the arms. "I can," the chairman said simply. "It's my building." As Choi was dragged away screaming, the chairman turned back to Amara. His face softened. He looked at her ruined portfolio on the ground. Amara, he said gently. I believe you missed an interview. Yes, sir. Amara whispered, looking down. But it doesn't matter now. The position is probably filled. The position of junior designer? The chairman asked. Yes, that position is closed. Amara's heart sank. Even after all this, she still didn't have a job. She nodded, trying to be brave. I understand. Thank you for standing up for me, sir. She turned to walk away, to go back to the subway, back to her basement, back to her failure. Where are you going? The chairman asked. Home, sir, Amara said, her voice cracking. I didn't say you could leave, the chairman said, tapping his cane on the ground. He looked at his grandson, Ji-hoon. Ji-hoon, do we need a junior designer? Ji-hoon shook his head, smiling at Amara. No, grandfather. We have plenty of juniors. What we need is a leader. The chairman nodded. He looked at Amara, with a twinkle in his eye. Amara Adebayo, you didn't get the job you applied for. Because I have a better one in mind. A better one? Amara asked, confused. I am starting a new division, the chairman announced. Park Global Charity Fashion. A line dedicated to sustainable clothes, where 100% of the profits go to medical aid for families in need. I need someone with a heart of gold to run it. I need a director. He extended his hand to her. Will you come inside and interview for the position of head director? Amara stared at the chairman's outstretched hand, her heart pounding against her ribs like a talking drum. The sounds of the busy Seoul street seemed to fade away, leaving only the old man's kind voice echoing in her ears. Head director. It was a title she had only ever dreamed of, a title reserved for people with rich parents and fancy degrees, not for a girl from Lagos living in a basement. She looked down at her dirty knees, her ruined shoes, and her hands that were still sticky from the orange juice. Then she looked at the chairman, who was waiting patiently, and at his grandson, Ji-hoon, who was smiling at her with a warmth that made her cheeks flush. She thought of her mother in the hospital bed, waiting for a miracle. She realized that God doesn't always send miracles wrapped in gold paper. Sometimes they come wrapped in a challenge. Amara took a deep breath, stood up straight, and gripped the chairman's hand. I accept, she said, her voice steady and strong. I will not let you down, sir. The chairman laughed, a delighted sound that made his eyes crinkle. He tapped his cane on the sidewalk and announced that they had work to do. He turned around and began walking back toward the massive glass doors of Park Global. Amara followed him, but this time it was different. 10 minutes ago, she had been dragged out of these doors like a criminal. Now, she was walking in flanked by the owner of the company and the CEO. As they approached the revolving doors, the security guards who had manhandled her scrambled to get out of the way. They bowed so low their heads almost touched the floor, sweating nervously, terrified that the chairman would fire them next. Amara walked past them with her head held high. She didn't look at them with anger. She looked at them with grace. She walked into the lobby, and the silence was instant. The receptionist, the beautiful woman with the icy voice who had mocked Amara, was standing behind her desk, pale as a ghost. She was pretending to type on her computer, but her hands were shaking. As the chairman walked past, he stopped. He didn't say a word. He just looked at the receptionist, then looked at Amara, then back at the receptionist. The woman swallowed hard and bowed quickly. Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, ma'am, she squeaked, looking at Amara. Amara gave her a small nod. It wasn't revenge, but it felt like justice. They walked toward the private executive elevators at the back of the lobby, the ones Amara had only ever seen from a distance. Ji-hoon stepped forward and pressed the golden button. The door slid open, and they stepped into a box of glass and mirrors that smelled of expensive leather. As the elevator shot up toward the top floor, the silence in the small space made Amara suddenly very aware of how she looked. She saw her reflection in the mirrored wall. Her hair was frizzy, there was a dark smudge of dirt on her cheek, and her cream suit was ruined. Standing next to Ji-hoon, who looked like he had just stepped out of a fashion magazine, she felt small again. She tried to hide the stain on her pants with her portfolio. Ji-hoon noticed her discomfort. Without saying a word, He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a pristine white silk handkerchief. He handed it to her gently. "For your cheek," he whispered, his voice deep and smooth. Amara took it, her fingers brushing against his. An electric spark seemed to jump between them. She quickly wiped her face, murmuring a thank you. "Don't worry about your clothes," Ji-hoon said, looking straight into her eyes. "My grandfather is right. Real style comes from the inside. And you shine." Amara felt her face heat up. No man in Korea had ever looked at her like that.
Ding.
The elevator doors opened on the 50th floor. This was the executive level. The carpet was so thick Amara's heels sank into it. The walls were lined with award-winning dresses and famous magazine covers. They walked down a long hallway toward a set of massive double doors made of dark oak. The chairman stopped. He turned to Amara, and his expression became serious. "Amara," he said, "inside this room is the board of directors.
They are old-fashioned men.
They care about profits, not people. They will not like you. They will not want you. Do you think you can handle them?" Amara thought about the market women in Lagos she used to haggle with. She thought about the landlords in Seoul who slammed doors in her face. She squared her shoulders.
"Chairman," she said,
"I have been fighting to be heard my whole life. I am ready." The chairman nodded approvingly. "Good. Then let's go make some trouble." He pushed the doors open. The boardroom was enormous. A long table sat in the center, surrounded by 20 men in gray suits. They were reviewing papers and drinking
coffee.
When the chairman walked in, they all scrambled to stand up, bowing and murmuring greetings. But when they saw Amara walking in behind him, a foreign woman with messy hair and dirty clothes, the room went deadly silent. You could hear a pin drop. The men exchanged confused, judgmental glances. One man, sitting at the head of the table near the chairman's seat, didn't bow as low as the others. This was Director Kong, a man with a face like a bulldog and eyes like cold stones. He was the second most powerful man in the company, and he hated change. "Chairman Kim," Director Kong said, his voice smooth but sharp. "We are relieved you are safe. But who is this? Has the cleaning staff come to clear the cups during a meeting?" A few of the board members chuckled quietly. Amara felt a sting of anger, but she kept her face calm. The chairman walked to the head of the table and sat down. He didn't laugh. "This," the chairman announced, his voice booming, "is Amara Adebayo, and she is not the cleaning staff. She is the new head director of the charity fashion division." The room erupted. It was chaos. Men started shouting over each other. "What? A director? Her." Director Kong slammed his hand on the table. "Chairman, this is preposterous. You cannot just walk in off the street and appoint a stranger to a director level. There are protocols. There are votes. And look at her. She is not one of us." He didn't say the words black or foreigner, but everyone heard them loud and clear. "She is clearly unqualified," Kong continued, pointing a pen at Amara. "Does she even have a degree? Does she know her market? This is a billion-dollar company, not a charity shelter." The chairman leaned back in his chair, unbothered. "She has something none of you have," he said calmly. "She saved my life when you all would have let me die to save your stock prices." He told them the story of the subway. He told them about the orange juice. The room got quiet again, but the tension didn't leave. Director Kong narrowed his eyes. He wasn't going to let this happen. He wanted that director position for his own nephew. "That is a touching story, Chairman," Kong sneered. "Whatever reward she deserves for being a good Samaritan, give her some money. Pay her off. But do not insult this company by giving her a job she cannot do. Fashion is about skill, not kindness. Unless she can prove she is a genius right now, I will call for a vote to block this appointment." Amara stepped forward. She walked right up to the table, standing opposite Director Kong. She placed her hands on the polished wood. "I don't want your charity," she said, her voice clear and powerful. "I am a designer. A brilliant one. And I don't need you to give me the job. I will earn it." Director Kong laughed. "Earn it? Fine. Let's test this, genius." He reached under the table, and pulled out a box. He threw it onto the table. It slid across and stopped in front of Amara. "Inside that box is the nightmare dress," Kong said with a cruel smile. "It was designed for Korea's top actress for the red carpet gala tonight. But the seamstresses ruined it.
It is a disaster.
The gala is in 1 hour. If you're a director, fix it. Make it a masterpiece. If you can't, you leave this building and never come back." Ji-hoon stepped forward. "Director Kong, that is unfair. That dress was declared impossible to fix by our senior team. You are setting her up to fail." The chairman stayed silent, watching Amara. He wanted to see what she would do. Amara opened the box. She gasped. Inside was a dress made of expensive red silk, but it was shredded. The seams were twisted, the hem was uneven, and someone had spilled coffee on the bodice. It looked like a rag. It was impossible. To fix this in 1 hour would take a miracle. She looked at the smirking faces of the board members. They were waiting for her to cry. They were waiting for her to run. Amara took a deep breath. She thought of the colorful fabrics in the Lagos markets. She thought of how she used to make dresses out of scraps for her dolls. She looked at Kong. "I don't need an hour," she said. "Give me 30 minutes. And I need scissors." The room murmured in shock. Scissors? On a $10,000 dress? Kong gestured to an assistant to hand her a pair of shears. 30 minutes, Kong said, checking his gold watch. "Your time starts now." Amara didn't hesitate. She grabbed the dress and threw it onto the table. She didn't try to fix the seams. Rip! She tore the skirt off. The board members gasped. Snip! She cut the sleeves. She was destroying the dress. She worked like a whirlwind, her hands moving so fast they were a blur. She took the ruined bodice and flipped it inside out, exposing the contrasting lining. She used the pins from her own hair to drape the fabric. She wasn't fixing it. She was reinventing it. She was sweating, her focus intense. Ji-hoon watched her, mesmerized. He had never seen anyone work with such passion. 5 minutes. Kong shouted, looking happy. The dress still looked like a pile of fabric. Amara grabbed a stapler from the table, a stapler, and used it to secure the heavy pleats of the silk, hiding the metal staples under the folds. It was a street hack, something no high-end designer would dare do. But Amara wasn't a high-end designer. She was an artist. "Time's up," Kong yelled. "Put the scissors down." Amara dropped the scissors. She stepped back. The room went silent. On the table was not a ruined rag. It was a stunning, avant-garde cocktail dress. It was bold. It was asymmetrical. It mixed the traditional Korean silhouette with a wild, African-inspired draping style. It was breathless. It was new. Even Director Kong stared at it, his mouth slightly open. He couldn't deny it. It was better than the original. "Well," the chairman said, breaking the silence. "I think we have our answer." He looked at Amara with pride. "Welcome to the team, Director Adebayo." Ji-hoon started clapping. Slowly, the other board members joined in, impressed despite their prejudice. Amara let out a breath she had been holding. She had done it. She had won. But just as the applause was getting louder, the double doors of the boardroom slammed open again. A woman walked in. She was stunningly beautiful, wearing a white suit and diamonds. She looked like a queen, but her eyes were full of venom. She walked straight to Director Kong and whispered something in his ear. Kang's face lit up with a nasty triumph. He stood up, silencing the room. "Stop the applause," Kong shouted. "We have a problem." He pointed a finger at Amara. "This woman cannot be hired. She cannot work here. In fact, she needs to be arrested." The chairman frowned. "What are you talking about, Kong?" "My daughter just checked the HR records," Kong said, gesturing to the woman who had just entered. "She ran a background check on Miss Adebayo." He pulled a piece of paper from his pocket and waved it in the air. "It seems our genius has a secret. Her work visa expired 2 days ago. She is here illegally. If we hire her, Park Global will be fined millions, and we will lose our government contracts." Amara froze. The blood drained from her face. She had been so busy worrying about her mother and money that she had forgotten to renew her paperwork. It was true. Technically, she was an illegal alien. Security, Kong shouted, pointing at the door. Call immigration. Get her out of here before she taints this company. Ji-hoon stepped in front of Amara, blocking the guards.
No.
We can fix this. We can sponsor her. It's too late. Kong yelled. The law is the law. She is a criminal. Amara looked at the chairman. He looked sad, helpless. The law was the one thing even a billionaire couldn't fight easily. The guards moved toward her. Amara felt the walls closing in. She had passed the test. She had won the job. But now, she was going to be deported. She would be sent back to Nigeria with nothing, and her mother would die. The heavy wooden doors of the boardroom felt like they were closing on Amara's life. 2 security guards gripped her arms, their fingers digging into her skin. Director Kong was standing over her, a triumphant, snake-like smile on his face, waving the paper that proved her visa had expired. The room was spinning. Amara looked at the beautiful dress she had just created on the table, her masterpiece. It didn't matter anymore. Her talent didn't matter. Her kindness didn't matter. The law was black and white, and she was on the wrong side of it. She thought of her mother, lying in that hospital bed in Lagos, waiting for a call that would now never come. A sob caught in Amara's throat, but she swallowed it down. She wouldn't give Kong the satisfaction of seeing her cry. She looked at the chairman, silently pleading for a miracle, but the old man sat stone-faced, his hands resting on his cane. Take her away, Kong barked at the guards. Call immigration. Tell them we have detainee ready for deportation. And throw that rag she made in the trash. The guards pulled Amara backward. She stumbled, her heels catching on the thick carpet. Wait, she cried, looking at Ji-hoon. Please, just let me call my mother. She needs to know I'm coming home. You can call her from the airport, Kong sneered. If you can afford the call. The guards dragged her 1 step, 2 steps toward the door. Amara closed her eyes, accepting her fate. This was it. The end of the dream. Stop. The voice cracked through the air like a whip. It wasn't the chairman. It was Ji-hoon. The handsome CEO slammed his hand onto the table, knocking over a glass of water. He strode across the room, his eyes blazing with a fire Amara had never seen before. He walked straight up to the guards and shoved them away from Amara.
Let
her go. CEO Park, Kong said, stepping forward with a frown. Be reasonable. She is illegal. If we harbor her, the company is liable. You cannot break the law for a charity case. She is not a charity case, Ji-hoon said, his voice shaking with suppressed rage. He looked at Amara. He saw the fear in her eyes, but he also saw the strength. He reached out and took her hand, interlacing his fingers with hers. He turned to the board of directors. And she is not illegal, because as of this moment, she is under my personal sponsorship. Sponsorship. Kong laughed. A work visa takes weeks to process. By then, she will be back in Nigeria. Not a work visa, Ji-hoon said loudly. He took a deep breath and looked at his grandfather, the chairman. The old man gave him a tiny, almost invisible nod. Ji-hoon turned back to Kong. A spousal visa. The room gasped. Amara's eyes went wide. She looked at Ji-hoon. What? She whispered. Ji-hoon didn't let go of her hand. He looked at the board. Amara Adebayo is my fiancé. We are engaged to be married. Dead silence. Director Kong looked like he had been slapped. You are lying. You just met her today. Did I? Ji-hoon lied smoothly, stepping closer to Amara. Or perhaps we have been keeping it a secret. Perhaps that is why my grandfather brought her here. Perhaps that is why she fought so hard to be here. He squeezed Amara's hand, a silent signal for her to play along. In Korea, the fiancé of a citizen is granted immediate temporary residency while the paperwork is filed. She is not going anywhere. Director Kang's face turned purple. This is absurd. I don't believe it.
prove it.
Kiss her. The room went tense. The other board members leaned forward. Amara's heart hammered against her ribs. She had never kissed a man, let alone a billionaire CEO, in front of 20 people. She looked at Ji-hoon. He looked down at her, his eyes asking for permission. She nodded slightly.
Ji-hoon leaned in.
He didn't hesitate. He cupped her face with his free hand and kissed her. It wasn't a fake, stage kiss. It was soft, warm, and real. It lasted for a long, breathless moment. When he pulled away, Amara was dizzy. "Is that proof enough, Director Kong?" Ji-hoon asked coldly. Kong was sputtering, pointing a finger at them. This is a trick. Chairman,
You cannot allow this.
your grandson marrying a foreigner? A nobody? The chairman finally stood up. He tapped his cane on the floor.
Clack. Clack.
"Enough," the chairman said. His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of a mountain. He walked over to Director Kong.
Kong.
"You have insulted my guest. You have insulted my grandson. And you have insulted the future of this company. I was trying to protect the company." Kong yelled. "No," the chairman said, pulling a file from his inside jacket pocket. "You were trying to protect yourself." He threw the file onto the table. Photos spilled out. "I know you sabotaged the original dress, Kong. I have the security footage of your assistant cutting the seams last night. You wanted the gala to fail so you could blame the design team and hire your own nephew." The board members gasped. Corporate sabotage was a serious crime. And, the chairman continued, stepping closer, checking the visa status of a candidate before they are even hired? That is illegal privacy violation. You broke the law to get rid of her because you were scared of her talent. The chairman pointed to the door. "You are fired, Kong. And my lawyers will be contacting you about the damages to the dress. Get out." Kong looked around the room. No one stood up for him. He was alone. He glared at Amara one last time with pure hatred, then turned and stormed out of the room, slamming the doors behind him. The tension in the room broke. The board members started clapping again, this time louder and more genuine. Amara felt her knees give out, but Ji-hoon held her up. "Are you okay?" he whispered. You lied," Amara whispered back, still in shock. "We aren't engaged." Ji-hoon smiled, his ears turning pink. "We can figure out the details later. But for now, welcome to the family." 1 week later, the private jet sat on the runway at Incheon International Airport. It was gleaming white with the Park Global logo on the tail. Amara stood on the tarmac, holding her phone. "Mama," she said into the phone, "look out the window." In a hospital room in Lagos, thousands of miles away, Mama Ngozi looked out the window. An ambulance was waiting to take her to the airport. "Amara?" Mama asked, confused. "What is happening?" "You are coming to Seoul, Mama," Amara said, tears of joy streaming down her face. "The chairman sent his private medical jet for you. You're going to get the surgery today." "But the money?" "No money, Mama," Amara laughed. "It's covered. Everything is covered." Amara looked behind her. Ji-hoon was standing there, holding a bouquet of flowers. He wasn't wearing a suit today, he was wearing jeans and a t-shirt. He looked happy. "Ready to go get your mom?" Ji-hoon asked. "You are coming to Nigeria?" Amara asked, surprised. "I have to meet my future mother-in-law, don't I?" Ji-hoon grinned. "Technically, we are engaged. We have to make it look real." Amara smiled. "Just for the visa, right?" Ji-hoon stepped closer. He took her hand. "Let's see how it goes." 1 year later, the Park Global Charity Gala was the biggest event of the year in Seoul. Cameras flashed like lightning storms as celebrities walked the red carpet. But tonight, everyone was waiting for one person. A black limousine pulled up. The door opened. Amara stepped out. She looked like a queen. She was wearing a dress of her own design, a breathtaking gown made of Nigerian Ankara fabric in deep purple and gold, mixed with Korean silk. Her hair was styled in a high, regal crown of braids. The crowd screamed her name. "Director Amara. Over here. Director Amara." She smiled and waved. She wasn't the scared girl in the basement anymore. She was a fashion icon. Next to her, a healthy, happy Mama Ngozi stepped out, wearing a matching traditional outfit. She waved at the cameras, loving the attention. And then, Ji-hoon stepped out, He walked up to Amara and put his arm around her waist. He whispered in her ear, "You look beautiful, my love." "You don't look so bad yourself, CO Park," Amara teased. "Are you ready for the announcement?" he asked. Amara nodded. They walked up the stairs to the microphone where the chairman was waiting. The old man looked younger than ever, his eyes sparkling with pride. "Welcome, everyone," the chairman announced to the world. "Tonight, we celebrate the success of the charity division. Thanks to Director Amara, we have built 5 hospitals in Nigeria and 3 schools in Seoul." The crowd cheered. "But we have another celebration," the chairman said. "My grandson has finally stopped pretending." Ji-hoon took the microphone. He looked at Amara. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. The crowd went silent. "Amara," Ji-hoon said, "a year ago, I proposed to you to save you from the law. I did it to be a hero." He dropped to one knee. "But today, I am doing it because I cannot imagine my life without you. You saved my grandfather. You saved this company. And you saved me." He opened the box. A diamond ring sparkled inside. "Amara Adebayo, will you marry me? For real this time?" Amara looked at the ring. Then she looked at the man who had stood by her side through everything. She looked at her mother, who was crying happy tears in the front row. She looked at the chairman, who was giving her a thumbs up. She grabbed the microphone. "Yes," she shouted. "Yes." Ji-hoon slipped the ring on her finger. He stood up and kissed her, and the crowd erupted into cheers. Confetti rained down on them, purple and gold. Amara looked up at the sky. She remembered the girl crying on the curb, the girl who missed her train to help a stranger. She realized now that she hadn't missed her train. She had caught the only one that mattered. She had missed an interview, but she had found her destiny.
The end. Wow.
What a journey! From a basement apartment to the top of the world. Amara's kindness came back to her 1,000 times over. Loudly crying face red heart if you love this story. Please smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. We have so many more amazing stories coming. Comment below, which part was your favorite? The dress transformation? Or the proposal? Let me know. See you in the next video.
Bye.
Waving hand.